again. We like to turn to Matthew chapter 6. Looking at Christ's teaching upon prayer, and such should define our lives. Verses 11 through 13 begins the petitions. We saw last week that you have the plural us and our, verse 11 and 12, us and the verse 13. So these are things that we're not merely to pray for ourselves, but to pray for one another. In other words, prayer should be intercessory. In verse 11, give us this day our daily bread. Again, the first part of Christ's teaching here, the first three petitions, have respect to God's glory, and now we get to our own welfare. So, the first three direct us to pray for the advancement of His name, His kingdom, His will, and now we get to our temporal and our spiritual good. I believe the order is very, very important. The one praying is to give preference to God. We are to prefer that God be glorified above our own personal needs. The order teaches us that the physical life is in subordination to God's honor. Again, the order is very important. So the lesson is that the one praying is not to desire that their personal needs, not to desire their personal needs in a way that is inconsistent with the glory of God. So that's the whole thing we're praying for. It should be for God's glory, for God's will, for His kingdom, for His will. So the lesson is that when one prays, even when we pray for physical needs, and most people, if they were to examine their prayers, the vast, vast majority concerns themselves. Oh, it may be for the well-being of their family, but still comes back to themselves. And very little spiritual matters. Very little concerning who God is and His glory. Nothing wrong with praying for temporal things. But again, temporal and spiritual must always be in the right order. And we are to pray for temporal things for spiritual ends, not just for our own personal ends. In 1 Samuel chapter 1, we see this teaching. 1 Samuel chapter 1, in verse 11, you have the prayer of Hannah. And she vowed a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if thou wilt indeed look on the affliction of thine handmaid, and remember me, and not forget thine handmaid, but will give unto thine handmaid a man child, then I will give him unto the Lord all the days of his life. And she did. A lot of people say things like that, but they don't follow through. And there shall no razor come upon his head. So she prayed for temporal, but she had spiritual end in view. In the book of James, chapter 4, verse 3. James chapter 4 and verse 3. Ye ask and receive not, because ye ask amiss. So there is such a thing as praying amiss. He describes it here that ye may consume it upon your lust, or it's all about you. It's all about your desires. He's just the one who's giving it. Nothing about His glory, nothing about His honor. James says that is amiss praying. You miss the mark. You miss it. Prayer is about God. And again, that's the very first part of our prayer should be worshiping God, praising God. And when we do that, that puts us in the right frame of mind to pray. It's not just us, but it's Him. So let's look at this request. Give us this day our daily bread. That which is requested here is bread. Has reference to the necessities of life. Things that we have to live. The things that sustain life. Be food, raiment, shelter. You can add to that the means to provide those things, jobs. And God is to be petitioned for temporal needs. Again, with spiritual ends in view. The request would also include God's blessings upon our efforts to obtain bread. Notice in Deuteronomy chapter 8. Deuteronomy chapter 8 and verse 18. Deuteronomy 8, verse 18. But thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for it is He that giveth thee power to get wealth, that He may establish His covenant, which He sware unto thy fathers, as it is this day. Notice, is He that giveth thee power to get wealth, to obtain necessities. Why does He do that? To establish His covenant. He does it for spiritual ends. We're to pray for the temporal with spiritual ends in view, and God gives us the ability to obtain that which sustains our life, our physical life, and He does so for spiritual ends as well. Give us this day our daily bread. So that's what we're requesting. Now, the manner of seeking the Lord for these necessities is seen in that word give. Give us this day our daily bread. There's no plea of merit. It's give us. It's not give us because we have, and you make a list of your faithfulness. If you're going to do that, then you better keep in mind your shortcomings. And I promise you, our shortcomings far outweigh any so-called merit. So the best thing to do is just plea on the grounds of God's grace and mercy. And the psalmist serves as a wonderful example of one who pleaded on the basis of God's mercy. We are to pray for temporal needs. And I believe the best way to do that is the basis is God's grace and mercy. We plead no merit. Just plead God's grace, God's mercy. Notice in Psalm, we'll read several Psalms here. Psalm 4, verse 1. This is to be a mark. It's to be a characteristic of all our praying. In Psalm 4, verse 1, last part of that verse says, "Have mercy upon me and hear my prayer." You realize it's God's mercy that He would even hear our prayers. Have mercy upon me and hear my prayer. Psalm 6, verse 2. Have mercy upon me, O Lord, for I am weak. There's nothing in myself. O Lord, heal me, for my bones are vexed. Again, he pleads God's mercy. Psalm 9, verse 13. Have mercy upon me, O Lord. Consider my trouble, which I suffer of them that hate me. Thou that liftest me up from the gates of death. Again, have mercy upon me. There's no stronger basis for praying than God's mercy, than God's grace. Notice in Psalm 25. Again, this is a much stronger basis than any so-called merit that we think we might have. Psalm 25, verse 7. Remember not the sins of my youth, nor my transgressions. According to thy mercy, remember thou me, for thy goodness' sake, O Lord. Again, he approaches God on the basis of mercy. Verse 16. Have mercy upon me, for I am desolate and afflicted. Psalm 27, verse 7. Hear, O Lord, when I cry with my voice. Have mercy also upon me, and answer me. God answers. That's His grace. That's His mercy. It has nothing to do with you and I. In Psalm 30, verse 10. Hear, O Lord, and have mercy upon me. O Lord, be thou my helper. Those are just simple requests. Have mercy. God, be merciful to me. A very basic request, but it covers everything. Covers everything. Psalm 31, verse 9. Have mercy upon me, O Lord, for I am in trouble. Mine eye is consumed with grief, yea, my soul and my belly. Psalm 33, verse 22. Let thy mercy, O Lord, be upon us according as we hope in thee. Psalm 41, verse 4. I said, Lord, be merciful unto me. Heal my soul, for I have sinned against thee. Psalm 51 and verse 1. Have mercy upon me, O God, according to thy loving kindness. And you could go on and on through the Psalms and see these prayers. Psalm 56:1, Psalm 57:1, Psalm 67:1. David was constant, or the psalmist was constantly pleading for God's mercy. So when we come to these words, give us, no merit is mentioned. It's just a plea for God's grace and God's mercy. The extent of seeking the Lord for physical necessities is seen in those words, this day, daily. This day, daily. It is not give us tomorrow's bread. That's not what it says. It says give us this day, our daily bread. In other words, give us the bread that belongs to this day. It's not bread for a week. It's not bread for a month. It's not bread for a year, but a day. We sang the song moment by moment. Another song goes along with it, day by day. That's how we're to live. So it teaches us that we're not to be anxious about tomorrow's provisions. We're just to pray, narrow it down to one day. To one day. It's in our nature to jump ahead. To jump ahead and anticipate all the problems that we think lie ahead. But the Lord teaches us today. Today. Notice in Matthew 6, verse 34. This is Sharon's favorite verse. Take therefore no thought for the morrow shall take thought of the things of itself. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. The Christian life is a daily life. It is a day-by-day life. Notice in Exodus 16, concerning the giving of the manna. Exodus 16, verse 4. Then said the Lord unto Moses, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day. Every day. Every day I will give you what you need for that day. Well, Lord, what about tomorrow? Tomorrow, it'll be there. It'll be there. It's God's faithfulness. It's God's faithfulness. It's trust in God's faithfulness. Notice in Psalm 88 and verse 9. Psalm 88, verse 9. Mine eye mourneth by reason of affliction. Lord, I have called daily upon thee. I have stretched out my hands unto thee. We pray for our daily needs, our daily necessities. Psalm 145. And again, it's God who gives us the power to work, the ability to, the means to obtain. Psalm 145:2. Every day will I bless thee, and I will praise thy name forever and ever. The phrase in Exodus 29, verse 38, day by day continually. Day by day continually. That describes the way the Christian life is to be lived. Day by day, continually. Live for the Lord today. If you have another day, do the same thing again. And if you have another day, do the same thing again. And you pray each day that the Lord give us what we need. Give us this day our daily bread. It reveals that God would have us come to Him every day for supply. we have a tendency, just like a little child, we are children of God, and we act like children. We have the tendency to just forget where things come from. We just expect them to be there. And if we're not careful, we give credit to the wrong sources for our daily necessities. Person has a job. With that job, they're able to buy food, they're able to buy clothing, they're able to support their life. But it's not the job that is providing those needs. Again, Deuteronomy 8:18. The Lord gave you the ability to work the job. It all goes back to Him. It all goes back to Him. So when one loses their job, they just lose it. They just lose their mind almost. God provided the job. And believe it or not, He can provide another one. And He will. It wasn't the job that was providing your needs. God provided the job for the needs. So we have to remember the source. And so therefore every day, we don't take our necessities for granted. We pray, give us this day our daily bread. God's people, we ought to be content. And every person struggles with this. We ought to be content with the provision of daily needs. Now, in our society, in our culture, most people have far more than their daily need. They have far more than that. If they get down to just their daily need, they go into panic mode. But we ought to be content with the provision of a daily need. And then when tomorrow comes, that's now that day, and you pray. That's what God is teaching us to do. Again, easier said than done. From whom are we to seek these things? Again, it all goes back to our Father. Our Father. That's where prayer begins. Our Father. Give us this day our daily bread. God is the giver. God is the giver. May we never, ever forget that. Psalm 136, verse 25. Who giveth food to all flesh. And then we get back to His mercy. For His mercy endureth forever. Psalm 145. Psalm 145. Verse 15 and 16. The eyes of all wait upon Thee, and Thou givest them their meat. Notice, in due season. In due season. Thou openest Thine hand. How easy is it to just open your hand? Pretty easy. Nothing difficult. Pretty easy. And that's all the Lord does, just opens His hand. And satisfieth the desire of every living thing. The Lord is righteous in all His ways. It's all based upon who God is. God not only provides, I believe He delights in giving, and that He's not tired of doing so. Now, you and I we would have stopped a long time ago giving to people such as ourselves. Well, I wouldn't give him any money. He's just going to waste it. Oh, how often God gives us something and we do just that. Again, we're to use temporal things for spiritual ends. Or they won't appreciate it. God just keeps on. And I believe He delights in providing the needs of His people. So give us this day our daily bread. What are the implications of that request? Well, it implies that God is the preserver of life. The entire universe is upheld by God. Hebrews 1 verse 3. And all things that have life are maintained by God. The request implies that God is the proprietor of all. He's the owner. He's the owner of the daily bread. He's the owner. It's His. And even when He gives it to us, it's still His. Everything He gives us is basically a loan, one that we don't have to pay back. The request implies that man is entirely, bread is a very simple thing, very basic. It implies that man is entirely dependent every single day upon God for all things. And how easily we forget that we are absolutely dependent upon God every single day for all things. That is true physically, that is true spiritually as well. John 3:27, every perfect gift cometh from above, cometh from God. Notice in Jeremiah 10 and verse 23. Jeremiah chapter 10. Verse 23. O Lord, I know that the way of man is not in himself. How many of us know that? Lord, I know the way of man is not in himself. It is not in man that walketh to direct his steps. It's all of God. It's all of God. If we know that, it's all of Him, then who are we going to go to for our daily bread? If you know it's all Him, you go to Him. But many times we forget that. The request, of course, implies a sense of personal need. Most, and again, it's because of our nature, it's because of who we are. I doubt that there are very many who pray every day for the basic necessities of life. When we get in a bind and we need something, but we don't see how it's going to be obtained, we pray. And nothing wrong with that. But we should pray before that. We shouldn't have to get in a bind to seek God. It's just the basic needs of life. We pray. Prayer is to be earnest. We see in Colossians 4 verse 12, James 5 verse 16. It's to be earnest, it's to be fervent, and it flows from a sense of need. when you absolutely know, I need such and such, and you know that, and it's gripped you, you pray. But every day we ought to feel that sense of need for daily bread. But we just take daily bread for granted. Prayer, according to Luke 18, verse 1, Ephesians 6, verse 18, is to be with perseverance. Perseverance isn't a problem when you know you have a need. You will persevere. But we have to know, we have to feel that need. And every day we ought to feel the need for bread. We ought to feel that need. Before Christ, you think about it, before Christ fed the thousands, on both occasions, He caused the disciples to realize that they did not have the means to feed such a multitude. He asked them on both occasions, what do you have? He knew what they had. But He's drawing their attention to the fact we don't have what we need. We can't do this. And He caused them to realize the smallness of their loaves and the smallness of their fishes. And what did that do? That produced a sense of need. We need Him. We need Him. And the Lord took what they had and did the miraculous. 5 loaves, a few fishes, in our hands is 5 loaves and a few fishes. That's all it is. You can cut it up smaller, that's all it is. That's all it is. You can spread it out, that's all it is. When He says, bring it to me, now it's different. In our hands, 5 loaves and a few fishes, or 7 loaves, whichever case you want to look at. But in His hands, enough, more than enough, to feed multitudes. So there needs to be the realization of personal need. Give us this day our daily bread. Does not also that simple request, those 2 words, this day and daily, there's a sense of urgency there. Lord, I need it now. I need it now. A lot of God's people make the mistake. They think, I need this right now, and if the Lord doesn't give it to them right that second, they take matters in their own hands, and now guess what? You've increased your needs now because you've made a mess of it. Well, He didn't answer my prayer. He's not on your time schedule. Never has been. You just wait the Lord's time. Give us this day our daily bread. Just wait a while. The Lord will give you your daily bread. Well, what if He doesn't give it to me today? Well, you didn't need it then. Because He will give us this day our daily bread. He's faithful. The request implies faith. When you pray that, you believe, first of all, that God is able to supply that need. And you believe also that He's willing to supply that need. And someone says, well, yeah, I know God's able, but I'm not deserving. You never were. You never have been. That gets us back to His mercy, His grace. And the request implies a spirit of humility. Bread. The simple thing. Give us this day our daily bread. Again, no plea of personal worth. No plea of merit. It's just the realization that if the simplest thing like bread, if it is going to be obtained, God must give it. God must give it. And that's always true. Whatever the need is, if it's going to be obtained, God's going to be the one who does it. He may do it through providing a job. He may do it by causing you to meet someone. Who knows? The Lord's not limited to the means of supplying our needs. That's what's so amazing when you wait upon God for your needs. The way God brings it about is just, you wouldn't even think. Well, I'd have never thought He'd done it that way. Well, why didn't you think He would have done it that way? Because you're not God. You're not going to think that way. But we ought to just trust Him and know that He's faithful. And He is. And every one of us can look in our lives and testify God has provided every step of the way. Even when I didn't see there could possibly be a way, God provided. So it all gets back to faith. Give us this day our daily bread. Brother Ben, if you'll come and lead us in a verse of song. Let's all stand, and Ben will lead us in singing.